Darlings, this is a completed story with a rating as high as 9.9. Brand review reminder. The story begins. My wife went on a business trip for half a year and came back unexpectedly pregnant. It turns out I was nothing more than a plaything. She only loves her own moonlight. After 6 months of negotiations, my wife managed to secure a major project for the company. I was ecstatic and rushed to the airport to pick her up. But what I saw was her rounded belly, carrying someone else's child. My colleagues at the company pointed at me, mocking me for being cuckolded. My dignity and love were trampled on the ground. I knew our 5-year marriage had reached its end. Knowing my wife, Liu Ryan, would return from her trip today, I ordered a large bouquet of crimson roses at the florist and hurried to the airport. Because this project Liu Ryan secured for our company is highly profitable, and several high-ranking officials were also waiting at the airport. I stood until my legs were numb. Then I finally saw a neat and sharp figure. A trench coat appeared within my sight. I waved my hand vigorously and called out my wife's name loudly. But the moment our eyes met, my smile froze on my face. After not seeing each other for 6 months, Liu Ryan's sharpness remained. But as my gaze lowered, I noticed her swollen belly. The high-ranking officials beside me instantly fell silent, and their eyes all shifted towards me. Wife, you! Before I could finish speaking, our company's general manager, Ito Makoto, stepped forward from behind Liu Ryan. He affectionately draped his arm over her shoulder and gently asked, "Are you still feeling nauseous? I bought you some plums." Nauseous? Have some sour plums. I looked at Liu Ryan in disbelief. What is going on? Ito Makoto shrugged helplessly. Boater, you can see for yourself. Liu Ryan is over 5 months pregnant. She's really been struggling physically. My wife has been on a business trip for half a year, yet she's 5 months pregnant. Ito Makoto was openly telling everyone that my wife cheated and is carrying someone else's child. Then his cheerful voice rang in my ears again. What are you standing there for? Aren't you going to congratulate Vice President Liu? This project's profit alone is equivalent to half a year's performance for our company. The other executives all rushed forward to congratulate her, and someone bumped into me. Liu Ryan was surrounded by people offering their congratulations, while the roses in my hand fell, instantly crushed into the dirt under people's feet. Someone suggested, how about we throw a welcome back party for Vice President Liu tonight? But Liu Ryan declined. Sorry, everyone, I'm really tired from the long journey, and the baby in my belly needs rest too. I'll be heading home first. Hearing this, a sliver of hope rose in me. It turns out she hasn't forgotten that today is our 5th wedding anniversary. But in the next moment, she walked up to me and paused. Boater, you should head home first. We'll talk properly another day when I'm feeling better about us. Then Liu Ryan got into Ito Makoto's Maybach without glancing back at me. A dull pain throbbed deep in my chest. I stood there dazed, staring at the scattered petals on the ground, savoring the sound of those 3 words, Vice President Liu. Liu Ryan has been promoted again. Since she first joined the company, her promotions have always been much faster than mine. Team Leader Liu, Supervisor Liu, Director Liu, and now Vice President Liu. I watched as the distance between us grew wider and wider, until this moment, where she is pregnant again. I still remember a year ago when Liu Ryan found out she was pregnant. She was extremely emotional. She clutched my collar tightly and questioned, Boater, did you purposely skip contraception? Don't think you can trap me with a child. I knew Liu Ryan didn't want to be a stay-at-home wife, so I explained that I had always strictly followed her instructions for contraception. As for this child's arrival, perhaps it was fate. At that time, my mother was gravely ill and she wanted to see her grandchild before she passed. I begged Liu Ryan to keep the child, but she still took the abortion pill and terminated the pregnancy. When my mother learned about this, she cried and cursed me for being useless. That very night, she passed away. This incident dealt a heavy blow to me. I was in a slump for a long time. Maybe Liu Ryan felt some guilt over it too. That day, she surprisingly came to explain herself, saying that work was hectic, the pressure of promotion was immense, and that the child came at the wrong time. Jiboda, just wait another year or two, and we'll have a child. In the 5 years we've been married, she has devoted herself entirely to work, and I tried to manage the household so she wouldn't have to worry. Now, every corner of our home, every detail of the decoration was done by my own hands. Liu Ryan loves shiny things. I specially ordered a handmade crystal chandelier from Italy for her. She dislikes takeout, so I watched short videos to learn how to cook myself. For our anniversaries, Kixi Festival, Valentine's Day, and her birthday, I always prepared surprises. But all I ever got in return were Liu Ryan's cold and disdainful looks. Jiboda, I don't enjoy celebrating these occasions. You don't need to do these things. Liu Ryan said she doesn't like posting personal feelings in her social media moments. And I've never appeared in her moments either. Yet tonight, I saw Liu Ryan post a new moment. How lucky to have known you for 2,000 days. The picture showed two glasses of red wine clinking together. But what caught my eye on the other wrist was a Rolex Deep Sea R. I had seen that watch in Liu Ryan's shopping records before. I thought it was something she prepared as a surprise for our 5th wedding anniversary. But it turns out I was just being delusional on my own. It felt like a hand was squeezing my heart. The suffocating pain nearly took my breath away. So Liu Ryan doesn't mind sharing personal feelings on social media. She just doesn't want to share them with me. I sat in the living room, staring at that post for a long time. My eyes aching, my nose stinging by the end. Perhaps from beginning to end. It's only ever been Ito Makoto who truly owns all of Liu Ryan's affection. Liu Ryan and Ito Makoto were childhood sweethearts. She once filled 3 thick notebooks, documenting her admiration for him. Later, Liu Ryan's father mismanaged his business, leading to its bankruptcy. He jumped off the company building in despair. After that, the Ito family firmly opposed their relationship. That year, Liu Ryan was 20 years old. She decisively dropped out of school. To make money, she worked as a model, washed dishes at restaurants, and even served drinks in bars. Those places were full of shady characters, and with Liu Ryan's good looks, she quickly caught unwanted attention. That day, I happened to be heading to the Design Institute to adjust some drawings, and I accidentally witnessed Liu Ryan stumbling, drugged, barely able to walk, on the verge of collapsing. Several lecherous men were lurking behind her, waiting for her to fall so they could pounce. Without a second thought, I stepped forward and caught her. "Are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital?" One of the men cursed and pointed at me, warning me not to meddle in their business. Liu Ryan initially glared at me with suspicion. At that moment, she was like a wounded hedgehog, weak and helpless, yet still bristling with defensive spikes. My heart softened. "Don't be afraid. I'm not a bad person. I'll take you to the hospital." At the hospital, while receiving for fluids, Liu Ryan leaned on my shoulder and cried for a long time. She told me about her family's downfall, her unfulfilled dreams and regrets. The next day, when she sobered up, she asked me if I was willing to marry her. It wasn't until many years later that I learned. That day happened to be Ito Makoto's engagement day. I had always believed that my reunion and marriage with Liu Ryan were gifts of fate. In the end, I was nothing more than her backup plan out of spite. I spent the whole night sleepless, with my mind flooded with everything related to Liu Ryan. The next morning, I arrived at the office with swollen, bloodshot eyes. After a night of thinking, I still couldn't figure it out. So this morning, I just wanted to confront Liu Ryan face to face and ask her what I truly meant to her. But when I reached the director's office, her male assistant, Zhang Chen, stopped me. He smirked with a hint of sarcasm. "Team Leader G, Vice President Liu and the General Manager are in a meeting inside. You can't go in. His expression was full of disdain. I froze, clenching my fists as they trembled slightly. Suppressing the emotions surging within me, I asked, "When will Vice President Liu be available today?" Zhang Chen crossed his arms, leaning lazily against the doorway. "Well, that's a problem. Vice President Liu is busy all day today. Team Leader G, I suggest you wise up. Vice President Liu belongs to the general manager now. Just wear your green hat quietly, and opportunities for success will come your way in the future." His words triggered laughter from those around us. No normal man could stay calm after hearing such words. Anger surged through me, and before I knew it, I punched Zhang Chen square in the face. "Say that again if you dare." Zhang Chen, being all show and no substance, took my punch and fell flat on the ground, crashing into a nearby desk with a loud clatter. Soon after, the door to Liu Ryan's office swung open, but the one who came out was Ito Makoto. He frowned and asked Zhang Chen, "What happened to your face?" "No fighting during work hours." Upon hearing this, Zhang Chen immediately put on a pitiful expression, as if he was about to burst into tears. "President Ito, you and Vice President Liu were discussing business inside. So I told Team Leader G to wait a bit before going in. Who knew he'd suddenly raise his fist and punch me? He even knocked out one of my teeth." At this moment, Liu Ryan finally walked out slowly, giving me a reproachful glare. The instant I saw Liu Ryan, my expression darkened. She's someone who values her image, always maintaining her composure no matter the situation. But today, her shirt was worn inside out. Zhang Chen wasn't wrong. Liu Ryan and Ito Makoto were indeed engaging in something indecent in the office. "I told you, no unauthorized personnel should enter during a meeting." Seeing Liu Ryan was like a lifeline for Zhang Chen. A grown man actually started crying in front of everyone. "Vice President Liu, I tried to stop Team Leader G, but I couldn't. After all, he's the project team leader, while I'm just a lowly assistant." Before Liu Ryan could say anything, Ito Makoto looked at me with displeasure, sneering, "Even a mere team leader thinks he has such authority. How impressive." I cut them off, my gaze fixed on Liu Ryan. "We talked about this yesterday, let's have that conversation." But Liu Ryan still looked as impatient as ever. I suddenly felt like I had completely lost my dignity in this situation. Even if our 5-year marriage is ending, I wanted to have a proper conclusion. Ito Makoto, annoyed, pointed at me, ready to curse. But Liu Ryan raised her hand to stop him, saying, "Let it go, Ito, I'll talk to him, so he doesn't keep bothering us in the future." We went downstairs to a cafe and Liu Ryan got straight to the point. "The baby will be born in 5 months, and I want him to be born legitimately. Let's get divorced." The hand stirring my coffee suddenly stopped. Even though I had already expected this outcome, hearing it directly from Liu Ryan still made my eyes well up. Seeing my reaction, Liu Ryan assumed I was reluctant. She took out a card from her bag. "There's 2 million yuan on this card. Consider it compensation from me." I lifted my gaze and quietly stared at the card, then suddenly burst into laughter. 5 years of emotions exchanged for 2 million. I can't tell if that makes me valuable or worthless. I slowly pushed the card back to her. "I don't want it." Liu Ryan raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Jiboda, you only make 6,000 a month. It would take you 20 years to earn 2 million. Are you sure you don't want it?" After confirming my refusal, Liu Ryan gave me a contemptuous look. "Ito Makoto was right, you're not saying no, you just want more." She touched her belly and leaned back in her chair. "Tell me, what exactly do you want?" I didn't answer her question, but instead asked another one. "After our divorce, will Ito Makoto marry you?" A hint of anger appeared on Liu Ryan's face. "Of course, he will." Ito Makoto never had any real feelings for his wife in the first place. He promised me that he would divorce her. Besides, I'm already carrying the Ito family's child. The whole family is eagerly waiting to have a grandson. Seeing her face filled with joy, completely lost in imagining her future happiness. I tightly closed my eyes and spoke with a trembling voice. Fine, as you wish. After the conversation, I returned to the company. I overheard my team members whispering in hushed tones. Did you hear? President Liu is pregnant with President Itu's child. I never expected it. Team leader G seemed like a decent person on the outside, but turns out he's just living off a woman. Nowadays, making money isn't about hard work anymore. Ha, ha ha ha. I went straight in and they instantly quieted down. I've always treated my team members fairly, yet I never imagined they'd talk about me like this behind my back. Well, why don't you continue? Everyone lowered their heads, not daring to make a sound. If you can't meet this month's targets, don't even think about getting your performance bonuses. At that moment, someone muttered, offending President Itu, let's see how long you can remain a team leader. I walked up to that person, looked straight into his eyes, and said, if I want, I can stay at this company longer than you ever could. He understood the hidden meaning behind my words and was so frightened that he kept apologizing. Team leader G, I was wrong. Please don't fire me. That evening, the entire company attended the celebration banquet. I sat in the audience, watching Liu Ryan, gleaming with brilliance on the stage. I couldn't help but feel a whirlwind of emotions inside. The moment I decided to divorce Liu Ryan, I had already planned to leave this company. After all, when I quit my job at the Design Institute, I only joined this company to help her. Over the years, Liu Ryan and I worked seamlessly together, helping her secure numerous contracts and successfully establish her footing within the company. I thought that one day my silent dedication would be noticed by her. But in the end, this is what I get in return. Liu Ryan must have long forgotten that we actually met 10 years ago. Back then, because of my feminine looks, I was cornered in an alley and beaten by a gang of thugs. Liu Ryan suddenly appeared like a deity descending from the heavens. She held a brick and chased those guys away. What are you crying for? If they bully you, fight back. The warmth she gave me that day, I still remember it vividly. Today will be the last time I witness her shining moment. During the event, I went to the restroom, but I overheard Itu Makoto bragging to someone. How about it, brother? The beauty trap works wonders, right? I lied to Liu Ryan, telling her I still love her, and she was willing to sleep with me and bear my child. You have no idea how low she is back in the day. She even worked as a hostess, as if I'd ever marry a filthy woman like her. With a loud bang, I kicked open the door, grabbed him by the collar, and slammed him against the wall. You bastard, Liu Ryan loves you so much. How can you betray her like this? Itu Makoto saw it was me and cursed angrily. Jiboda, are you out of your mind? Your wife cheated on you, and you're still defending her. Are you some kind of fool? Itu Makoto had quite a few friends with him. I couldn't fight them all by myself, and soon enough, they pinned me down and started beating me. As their fists landed on my body, I suddenly heard Liu Ryan's voice. Stop, what are you doing? As soon as Itu Makoto saw Liu Ryan arrive, he signaled the others to stop. I was eager to tell her that Itu Makoto wasn't a good person at all, but all I got in return was Liu Ryan's icy glare. That's enough, Jiboda. I never imagined you could be this twisted. I felt guilty towards you this morning, but I didn't expect you to be constantly trying to drive a wedge between me and Itu Makoto. Watching Liu Ryan's determined figure walking away, I hung my head in despair. Liu Ryan, this time, it's me who doesn't want you anymore. The fight at the celebration banquet caused quite a stir, with several photos being taken and shared across various groups. I suffered a slight rib fracture and had to stay in the hospital for a few days. During that time, Liu Ryan didn't even call once. The day I was discharged, I received a notice from the company's HR department informing me of my dismissal. HR coldly informed me that due to my inadequate work performance, the company decided to terminate my employment. I didn't respond and headed straight into the company, only to be stopped by Zhang Chen at the office entrance. Team Leader G, please don't make this difficult for me. President Liu said she doesn't want to see you. As soon as Zhang Chen finished saying that, it seemed like he suddenly remembered something and quickly covered his mouth. Oh no, how could I forget, G Boater? You've already been fired from the company. Today, there's no such thing as Team Leader G. Sorry, unauthorized people aren't allowed inside. While saying this, Zhang Chen pulled out a small cardboard box filled with all the belongings from my desk. He wore a smug expression, clearly reveling in my downfall. Here, I even packed it up for you, take it and leave quickly. But he wasn't really offering the box sincerely. The next moment, Zhang Chen let go of his grip, and the box fell to the ground, scattering everything. Oops, my bad, couldn't hold it properly. I forced a smile. It's fine, hand tremors are common when you're kidney deficient. Zhang Chen, infuriated by my remark, snapped, who are you calling kidney deficient? G Boda? I couldn't be bothered to respond and pushed him aside, marching straight toward Liu Ryan with determination. She was seated at her desk, engrossed in paperwork. Hearing the commotion, she didn't even look up. I know you're unhappy with the company's decision, but the fact remains you did hit E2 Makoto. Liu Ryan paused for a moment before continuing. In any case, I've done everything within my power to help you. The severance package won't be short. I didn't say a word. I simply tossed the resignation notice onto her desk. I came here today to tell you 3 things. First, I don't care about the severance pay. Whoever wants it can have it. Second, if you like that scumbag E2 Makoto so much, you can keep him for yourself. I'm not interested in stirring up trouble between you two. Third, consider the past 5 years a mistake on my part. Let's find some time to finalize the divorce. Liu Ryan didn't expect me to be so decisive. She put down her work and looked at me in disbelief. G Boda, do you even know what you're saying? The severance pay is 2 in. Are you sure you don't want it? 2 in amounts to tens of thousands. It's not a small sum. Indeed, it's quite a substantial amount, but I really don't need it. After completing the resignation process, I stood outside the company building and made a call to a former colleague at the Design Institute, Engineer Zhang, about that project you recommended earlier. I thought it over carefully and decided to pass. This company's credentials are subpar, and there could be significant construction flaws. Back when I was at the Design Institute, I was mainly in charge of project design. Because of my exceptional skills, I was highly valued by the leadership. When I decided to resign 3 years ago, many leaders at the Institute were puzzled and even promised promotions to persuade me to stay. But I was determined to sacrifice my career for Liu Ryan. On the day I left, my colleague, Engineer Zhang, confidently said, G Boater, you're giving up your current position for a woman. Just to become a low-level employee at our client's company, it's a waste of your talent. At that time, I was young and full of pride, thinking that love could conquer all challenges. I even pounded my chest and assured my colleagues that I would eventually achieve both family and career success. But now, seeing how things have turned out, I really got what I deserved. However, Engineer Zhang sensed something was off from my tone. Like a big brother, he asked me, are you okay? ZG, you don't seem right. Is something wrong? Are you unhappy working there? Why don't you come back to the Design Institute? Just a few days ago, the leaders were still saying that your designs were the best in the entire institute. I forced a bitter smile. At this point, can I really go back? Without another word, Engineer Zhang arranged a gathering for that very night. He invited all the leaders and colleagues who once appreciated my work. After a few rounds of drinks, I couldn't hold back my sadness anymore and poured out everything that had happened recently. The more they listened, the angrier they became, cursing Liu Ryan for being blind. Why would she let go of such a good man like you? Just to lower herself to be someone's mistress? One day, she regretted for sure. But as the conversation went on, whether Liu Ryan regrets it or not is something I don't know, but I certainly regret it. A grown man crying like a mess, with tears and snot everywhere. In the end, it was my old leader who made the decision, telling me to sort out my personal matters first and start working at the Design Institute next Monday. Same position, same salary as before. I was deeply moved. Without saying a word, I grabbed the bottle and downed it. When I got home, it was already past midnight. As soon as I walked in, I saw the living room lights were on. Liu Ryan was sitting on the couch, looking angry as she questioned me. "Where did you go? Why are you back so late? Do you know I've been waiting for you for 2 hours? I'm so hungry my stomach's growling." Hearing this, I was stunned for a moment. If you're hungry, just eat. Didn't Itu Makoto order takeout for you? Who would have thought that just one sentence would make Liu Ryan burst into tears? Jiboda, you're being too much. I was pretty drunk at that point, so I simply sat down on the couch and poured myself a glass of water. Liu Ryan thought I was pouring it for her, but just as she reached out her hand, she saw me bring the glass to my own lips. She was so angry that her face turned dark. Back when we were married, I treated her like a queen. When I got home, I'd prepare her slippers. And every day, I'd cook meals tailored to her preferences. Because Liu Ryan often had social engagements in the evenings, I would always have a cup of honey water ready for her on the table. But tonight, I didn't prepare anything for her. Liu Ryan fumed for a long time before finally lowering herself to speak. "Fine, go cook me something for supper, I'm hungry." I lifted my eyes and glanced at her. Liu Ryan repeated, "Go already. What are you standing there for? Don't you know pregnant women can't go hungry?" Looking at her self-righteous expression, I suddenly realized how ridiculous all my efforts over the years had been. After hesitating for a moment, I still stood up. Only then did Liu Ryan's face soften as she resumed speaking from the couch. "It's late, so just make some sweet and sour pork, and stir-fry some shredded pork with green peppers. Don't forget to add extra spice for flavor." But the next moment, she noticed I wasn't heading to the kitchen, but rather to the bedroom. Liu Ryan angrily stood up. "Jiboda, what do you mean by this?" My response to her was the forceful sound of the door slamming shut. That night, I slept more soundly than ever. After deciding to let go of this relationship, I no longer felt anxious about Liu Ryan's hot and cold behavior towards me, nor would I be tormented by sleepless nights from witnessing her and Itu Makoto's intimate conversations at the company. The next morning, I woke up with a slight headache. As I stepped out of the bedroom, I saw Liu Ryan still sulking in the living room. But on the table was a spread of yaoyao and congee with preserved eggs and lean pork. She was on the phone, speaking sweetly. "Thank you, Itu Makoto, for having someone send this over. This breakfast is just perfect for my taste." But I distinctly remember that Liu Ryan never liked preserved eggs. After hanging up, she casually ordered me, as usual, "Go make me some French toast and sausages, I'm hungry." I couldn't help but find it amusing. She still hasn't realized that my past compliance was out of love for her, not because I enjoy degrading myself. "There's plenty on the table, just pick something to eat." Liu Ryan didn't expect me to talk back like that. She angrily slammed her cup down. "Jiboda, will you ever stop? I have this particular trait. I'm extremely stubborn. When I love someone, I'm willing to give everything, selflessly and without regret. But when I stop loving, I quickly detach, refusing to engage in meaningless entanglements. Don't you have work today? Perfect, let's go. Finalize the divorce in a bit." After speaking, I placed the signed divorce agreement in front of her. Liu Ryan was stunned for a moment, her eyes fixed intensely on the divorce papers. "Jiboda, what kind of trick are you pulling now? Weren't you the one who loved me to death before? And now you're willing to divorce so easily?" I nodded. "I've figured things out. Since you don't love me, it's better we separate. It's the best for both of us. Oh, by the way, this house was bought by me, and I handled all the renovations. So the house belongs to me. Everything else will be split according to the law." After I finished speaking, Liu Ryan gave a cold smile. "Fine, let's do it your way. We'll head to the civil affairs office right now. On the way to finalize the divorce, Liu Ryan was agitated the entire time, either cursing at the drivers on the road or berating her assistant Zhang Chan over the phone for being incompetent. In truth, her bad mood was simply because I didn't cling to her as desperately as she expected. Liu Ryan had grown accustomed to being cherished by me, and she couldn't accept how decisively I let go. But due to her pride, she couldn't show any sign of wanting to hold on. We arrived at the civil affairs office, divided our assets, and received our divorce certificate in a surprisingly calm manner. Liu Ryan, however, gently touched her belly and smugly said, "Good baby, now mommy is finally free. Just wait a bit longer and soon you'll get to meet your daddy." As I turned to leave, I heard Liu Ryan shouting behind me, "Jiboda, we've been through a lot together as a couple. Where are you heading? Let me give you a ride." But before I could respond, a black G-Wagon pulled up in front of me. Zhang Gong rolled down the window and winked at me. "Jiboda, remember this ride? It used to be yours. How does it feel to see it again familiar?" I sighed, gave him a nod, and opened the car door to get in. "Stop the chatter and just drive me back to the Design Institute. I still have to finish that draft the boss requested within the next couple of days." Zhang Gong glanced at me in surprise. "Seriously, man, are you some kind of workaholic? It's only your first day back, and you're already trying to outwork everyone." The whole Design Institute was thrilled about my return. As soon as I stepped inside, my former assistant walked up to hand me some documents. "Director G, this project was initiated last year, but the higher-ups were never satisfied with the design, so it was put on hold. Now that you're back, they specifically requested that you personally take the lead on the main design." I took the documents and nodded calmly. "All right, I'll discuss it with the leaders in the next few days." Director G, companies have invited you to dinner tonight. Should I confirm or politely decline on your behalf?" Hearing this, I turned to look at Zhang Gong. He grinned widely. "The higher-ups value you so much that the moment you decided to return, they started spreading the word that a big shot is rejoining the Design Institute. They even listed all the awards you've won and the major projects you've worked on. They're really rolling out the red carpet for you. The companies that thrive by depending on our Design Institute. Of course, they shamelessly come to pay you a visit. You, the legendary figure in the Design Institute. Actually, I prefer burying myself in hard work. I'm not fond of attending such flattering social gatherings." I was about to decline, but then I noticed a familiar company's name on the list. I am someone who remembers both favors and grudges clearly. If someone crosses me, it's unbearable if I don't get back at them. So I took the list and said, "All right, I'll go tonight just to reacquaint myself with these companies." In the evening at Yuyuan, the moment I walked into the private room, I locked eyes with Itu Sei and Liu Ruyan's astonished gazes. Tonight's social event was an invitation from my former company. Naturally, I had to show up and meet them. But soon, Liu Ruyan held her belly and stood up to scold me. "Jiboda, we have a crucial dinner tonight. What are you doing here, following me?" Her male assistant, Zhang Chen, perceptively blocked my way and said, "Jiboda, as a fellow man, have some dignity, will you? President Liu doesn't love you anymore. What's the point of clinging on?" In front of the other company executives, Itu Sei sneered. "Love? What love? I think he's just regretting getting too little in the divorce and is back to ask for more money." He then casually tossed the checkbook onto the table and arrogantly asked, "Hey, speak up. How much do you want? I'll give it to you right now. Take the check and get lost." Liu Ruyan's expression turned sour. The others at the table took the opportunity to flatter Itu Sei. President Yi is indeed broad-minded and generous, unlike some petty-minded individuals. Just as they were about to kick me out of the room, Engineer Zhang also walked in. Upon seeing him, Itu Sei quickly stood up to greet him. "Engineer Zhang, hello, why are you alone? Where's the new big boss from the Design Institute?" Engineer Zhang paused for a moment and then pointed at me. Isn't he right here? G. Boda, what are you standing there for? Hurry and take your seat. Among everyone here today, you're the main guest. These words left everyone in shock. Liu Ruyan even blurted out in disbelief. G. Boda is the high-salary recruit from the Design Institute. Impossible. Engineer Zhang, unaware of the awkward tension, poured me a drink. Why is it impossible? G. Boda was originally an outstanding designer at our institute. Back then, the leaders valued him highly. His future was limitless. Speaking of this, Engineer Zhang couldn't help but express his indignation. Who would have thought this kid would leave his promising career at the institute for a woman and join some small contractor company as a regular employee? But guess what happened next? That blind wife of his ended up having an affair with a married man, and even got pregnant with someone else's child. Everyone at the table looked at each other in silent discomfort. Finally, Engineer Zhang added, "Don't you think such a woman is blind?" The executives' faces turned pale, but they had no choice but to agree. Nodding awkwardly, yes, such a woman is indeed terrible. I calmly picked up my chopsticks and took a bite of meat. I couldn't be bothered to look at Liu Ruyan's stiff expression. The entire meal was awkward beyond words. During it, Zhang Chen tried to toast me. Director G, you're truly a young talent. I offer you a toast. At a dinner table, you usually give someone face by accepting their toast. But I really couldn't bring myself to drink this one. I forced a smile and replied, I'd rather not, thanks. I wouldn't dare drink a toast from Assistant Zhang. That's when Engineer Zhang realized something was off and curiously asked, is there some grudge between you two? I put down my glass, a cold smirk tugging at the corner of my mouth. That pregnant lady over there is my ex-wife. Oh, and the guy next to her, that's the one she cheated with. Engineer Zhang's jaw dropped in shock. Damn, it's the lover. Everyone at the table immediately lowered their heads, too scared to respond. Ituse clenched his glass tightly. After a long pause, he suppressed his irritation, stood up, and forced a smile. Director G, we were in the wrong before. I'll down 3 cups as an apology. Please don't hold it against me. With that, he tilted his head back and drank it all in one go. For a company president to publicly apologize to me like this, it must have been humiliating for him. But I still hadn't let out my pent-up frustration. I smirked. President Itu, that's not quite right. At the celebration banquet, when you had someone beat me up, surely a few drinks can't just make that go away, right? Engineer Zhang couldn't hold back anymore, slamming the table. Damn, the lover beating the wife? That's just too outrageous. Ituse gritted his teeth, glaring at me furiously. It took him a long time to finally put down his glass. There were some misunderstandings before, which led to that conflict. If Director G still holds a grudge, I'll slap myself a few times to help you vent your anger. As he spoke, Ituse actually reached out and slapped himself. The crisp sounds of those slaps echoed loudly, making them especially jarring in the private room. Liu Ruyan's eyes reddened, and the way she looked at me was filled with hatred. Enough, she suddenly slammed the table and stood up. G. Boda, today we're here to discuss cooperation, not to be humiliated by you. Ituse hadn't stopped his actions yet, but he coldly glared at her. Liu Ruyan, sit down. How dare you talk to Director G like that? Most of the company's contracts rely on cooperation with the Design Institute, so he obviously wouldn't dare offend me. After being scolded, Liu Ruyan felt extremely aggrieved, covering her mouth as she ran out of the room in tears. But Ituse didn't even bother to care. Director G, don't mind her. Let's continue eating and drinking. If you're still upset, I'll keep slapping myself. I never intended to humiliate anyone. At this point, it's just karma coming full circle. But not long after Liu Ruyan ran out, there was a cry from outside. Oh my god, a pregnant woman fell and there's so much blood. I frowned and immediately wanted to go check it out. But Ituse dismissed it disdainfully. Director G, don't bother with her. She's probably just putting on another act to get attention. Let's keep eating and drinking. I still got up and walked outside. Not because I still had feelings for Liu Ruyan, but because it was the basic conscience any normal person should have. Even if it were a stranger, a pregnant woman falling to the ground. I still couldn't just sit there in the private room and continue eating. Engineer Zhang and I ran out together, only to see Liu Ruyan lying on the ground, with a large pool of blood beneath her. There were quite a few people gathered around, but no one dared approach. Liu Ruyan cried out desperately, "Ituse, help me." She was terrified, crying and begging him to take her to the hospital. But Ituse, embarrassed by the situation, started cursing at her. "Damn it, what's wrong with you? Are you insane? Falling like this in front of everyone? You've completely humiliated me." Liu Ruyan lay on the ground, covered in blood. In the end, it was I who called 120 and got her into the ambulance. But because the rescue was delayed, by the time we reached the hospital, the baby couldn't be saved. It was a 5-month-old fetus, so they had to induce labor. But during the procedure, she hemorrhaged severely, and ultimately, Liu Ruyan's uterus had to be removed as well. From now on, she would never have children again. When she woke up, she touched her empty belly and cried out in agony. Seeing her in such deep sorrow suddenly reminded me of a year ago, when she coldly swallowed the abortion pills. Once she was in the hospital, my part in this was over. But just as I was turning to leave, Liu Ruyan asked me a question. "Did Ituse come to see me?" I remained expressionless and replied, "No." Then I turned and walked out of the room. Behind me, Liu Ruyan's sobs echoed painfully. "I'm sorry," she wept. I paused in my steps as I heard Liu Ruyan's voice behind me. "Jiboda, I'm sorry," she said. No matter how much she hurt me in the past, whenever she cried and apologized, I would always soften and forgive her. But this time, I simply replied indifferently. The medical expenses I covered amounted to over 6,000. Remember to transfer the money back to me. Sorry doesn't count as an apology. I want her to suffer as much as I did. That would be a real apology. Of course, the cooperation with Ituse was off the table. Their company lost a major contract, and Ituse spent his days at the office losing his temper. The first to bear the brunt was, of course, his male assistant, Zhang Chen. After making a small mistake, Ituse seized the opportunity to harshly scold him before firing him. Zhang Chen didn't want to leave and even went to plead with Liu Ruyan. But the result was that not only was Zhang Chen fired, Liu Ruyan was also demoted because of it. She went from the once glorious Vice President Liu to the same small project team leader I used to be. Some former colleagues intentionally came to tell me that now, without her power, Liu Ruyan is disliked by everyone in the company, and they constantly set traps for her. As for Ituse, he reverted to his old tricks. He quickly got close to the younger women in the company, and soon enough, there was another pregnant woman at the office. Liu Ruyan, unwilling to accept this, repeatedly confronted Ituse, demanding that he divorce his wife and marry her. But all she got in return was a look of disgust from Ituse. One day, while I was out discussing a project, while waiting at a traffic light, I passed by E2 Corporation. I unexpectedly witnessed a huge commotion at their entrance. Liu Ruyan was being attacked and cursed by a group of women. They called her a homewrecker, shamelessly seducing other people's husbands. Liu Ruyan stubbornly retorted, claiming that she and Ituse were childhood sweethearts and that their love was genuine. But the wife slapped her hard across the face. After delivering enough blows, the wife led her group away, leaving Liu Ruyan discarded on the ground like trash. She cried bitterly in sorrow and despair. But in a fleeting moment, her eyes met mine. Just then, the red light turned green. The car engine roared to life, and I slowly rolled up the window, no longer looking at her face. That night, the video of Liu Ruyan being beaten was uploaded online. She shouted that only those unloved were small-minded. which fueled even more public outrage. Netizens lashed out at her, branding her the most shameless mistress. But Liu Ruyan clung to her 3 diaries, which were filled with her adoration for Lee Tae, only for them to be torn to shreds by the wife. In the end, Lee Tae spoke into the camera and said, "Liu Ruyan, stop dreaming. Do you really think I'd marry a woman like you with no money or power? Playing around with you was just to make you work yourself to death for the company, and maybe help us have a child on the side. Did you really think you're worth anything?" Not only that, but Lee Tae also posted Liu Ruyan's private photos online. In an instant, Liu Ruyan's reputation was utterly destroyed. The next time I saw Liu Ruyan was 2 months later. I had just returned from an overseas conference, and as I approached my door, I noticed a frail figure slumped at the entrance. At first, I thought it was a beggar. "Hey, do you need me to call the police for you?" But when she lifted her head and called my name, I was taken aback for a moment. The once confident and radiant Liu Ruyan, always full of energy, now had lifeless eyes devoid of hope. "Ji-Boda, I regret everything. Now I realize you were the only one in this world who truly loved me." She clutched at the hem of my pants. "Can we go back to the way things were? Just like those loving days we once had. Ji-Boda, I can't live without you." I loosened my tie and sighed, "Sorry, but I've gotten used to living without you." Just then, a girl's voice came from behind me. "Ji-Boda, which dress should I wear for tomorrow's meeting?" The young assistant who used to follow me around, admiring me, had now become my girlfriend. Liu Ruyan's body trembled the moment she saw her. How could you so quickly with someone new? "Ji-Boda, didn't you say you loved me the most?" Liu Ruyan broke down, sobbing uncontrollably, terrifying. The young girl, who quickly hid behind me. "Ji-Boda, who is she?" I shielded her as we entered the house, and as I closed the door, I said, "No one, just a mad woman." The girl, still shaken, said, "She seems mentally unstable. Should we call the police? Is she hungry? Maybe we should give her something to eat." I gently stroked her hair and replied, "No need, by morning she be gone. Tomorrow is a new day, a fresh beginning for me and this girl. A new chapter in our story is about to start."